Hello, this is Reverend Dr. Chris Wilson from St. Andrew, and we are approaching Holy Week. We are up on the final week of the Lenten season, and this coming Sunday is Palm Sunday. And Palm Sunday is traditionally one of those festive Sundays, and it always is and always will be at some level. We have our Palm Processional, and we have kids and adults that will walk in and parade in and lay palms down. It's a celebration of Jesus' entry into Jerusalem, which ends up being for his final week of life. I don't think that many of the followers in that time when Jesus was living, when Jesus showed up, that they anticipated it being Jesus' final week. I think they anticipated something very differently. One of the things we have in the sermon series we've had leading up to this coming Sunday has been a faith that travels with us. And 2 weeks ago, Denise preached a sermon entitled Growing Edges. And then we sometimes have to step outside of our comfort zones to move into places to make some real change in our life. And one of the things that happens on what we call Palm Sunday, or Scripture calls it the triumphal entry of Jesus into Jerusalem, is a marketable change in how Jesus navigates the world in which he's living. Up until this entry into Jerusalem, Jesus in Matthew's gospel has been anywhere else other than Jerusalem. He's been in Galilee, he's been in Jericho, he's been in different places, but he's not been in Jerusalem. So Jesus has been doing justice work, I would say, out on the edges or the margins of the biblical world for the most part. Done a lot of challenging and pushing, changing of communities and villages and being on the countrysides and navigating and telling a different story about God's kingdom or the beloved community and what that is to look like. And Jesus has challenged the systems of his day, but has done so from a distance, so to speak. In this case, when Jesus shows up to Jerusalem, he is facing the system head on. And one of the things we think about when we think about the sermon series of a faith that travels with us is it's much easier to take the easy path or the comfortable path. One of the things we know about Jesus is he takes the faithful path, not the comfortable path or the easiest path. He takes the path that gets at the truth, or that allows authenticity of God's reflective image in the world to be visible in its truest and most pure forms. And so one of the ways that Jesus knows to get to that place is that sometimes you have to face challenges head on. You can't skirt around them. You can't just hope that they'll just go away. He originally basically had to come to the decision that I have to face the powers that be, the power and the privilege in the moment head on. And where was that? But in Jerusalem. So we have this triumphal entry, and all the things that Jesus has stood for us thus far have been about radical change. And I think people were hoping Jesus would bring radical change. I think they assumed he might come into Jerusalem with more of a thunderous presence and take control, and things would be radically different, more in a direct way. He was direct with his words, but he was loving with his actions. He faced head on the powers that be with words of love and grace and acceptance in a way that challenged how systems were unhealthy, unjust, and tried to model through his own life and through a measure of peace and speaking truth to power, so much so that it cost him his life to do so. But he also felt that was the truest, most authentic way to be the very person that God called him to be, and in a sense calls us to be. And so Palm Sunday is a joyful Sunday, but it's also stretching us to speak truth to power, to step into places of justice, to step into places of calling out, sometimes calling in, and addressing the very things that need to be addressed for the health and well-being of humanity. Palm Sunday is a joyful day. It is a challenging day. but it's also a day that brings fruit and life to us because it moves us into places maybe we have not been. And that's what Palm Sunday is about, is moving us to new places, to discovering more about our potential out on the riskier edges, the less comfortable spaces, and often those places are the places of greatest growth and the greatest potential for humanity. So I hope you'll join us on Sunday as we enter in this Holy Week and this time of celebrating Palm Sunday.